Namaste. Alright, I want to try to explain why it's so hard to completely escape from the mind and talk a little about exactly what the ego is. For those of you, who have a good understanding of the ego, most of us would say it's the personality, the collection of memories and beliefs, ideas about the world, the way you view the world, what you think about yourself in it. All of those things that were added on to you since you were born. It wasn't there when you were born. It can't be part of you, because you were you when you were born. And yet, even a child born today, if you notice, they're still born with certain proclivities. Like, you take two children raised in the exact same way, they won't come out to be the exact same people. And it's not just genetics. Well, to me, genetics and anything that can physically be viewed or recorded by a scientist or a scientific device is just a pattern within consciousness. It may look like that here, so we may be able to detect genetics here, but on another level, the genetics are representing some other kind of information. Just like the scientists say, so much of our genes is junk DNA, just because they don't understand what it does. But to my understanding, the DNA is an actual physical encoding of information, spirit. So the point I was trying to make is that because there are past lives, because our existence didn't just start with this birth, we didn't actually start here as clean slates. So even a child is not completely a clean slate today, normally. But compared to an adult, they are. So even to return back to the state you were as a child would be true rebirth, which is exactly what Jesus meant when he was talking about being born again. He was not referring to a ritual. He was not referring to saying some words. He was not referring to putting water on your head. He literally meant to be new, to be a new being. So, part of what we call the ego then, alright, let me clarify. So the ego, when I say the word ego, I could also use the word shadow, illusion, unreal, because to me, there's only one intelligence, one thing, one awareness. It's not even a thing. It is aware, it is infinite, it is intelligent. Because it is infinite, it is already everywhere. It can't go anywhere. There's no movement. It is still. It is formless. It can't be divided. It would take an infinite line to divide infinity. Therefore, the line itself is infinite. It's not possible. So it must be one. It must be silent, because sound is movement. So our true self, the absolute, is still, silent, formless awareness. All manifestation is the dream of that. So the initial, so basically I'm saying everything that has form, everything that is part of that dream, in a sense you could call ego. Maybe God's ego. It is the shadow of God, the dream of God. And just like our shadows aren't actually things, they have no substance of their own, they're simply the lack of light. And so the shadow here is the lack of truth, the lack of God. So the first dream is the dream of the soul. Okay? So there is a ideal image of each soul. All is really one, all is really God. But if you can think of it like a character, there is one initial, in Hinduism they call it Atman. So this is, if you're going to perceive yourself as any kind of separate being, that would be it, the initial soul. So that soul is aware, and basically as it came into awareness, it asked the question, what am I? Who am I? Where am I? All manifestation is the result of those questions, of the infinite exploring itself, because, like I said, our true self is formless. Our true self, there's nothing there to be aware of. It is aware, but there's nothing there to be aware of. So the true self knows itself through this, through all of our experience, through all this multiplicity, by playing infinite manifestations against infinite manifestations. So once the soul is manifest into a three-dimensional universe like this, once it is forgotten its original nature, and it has taken on the character of a person, at the time of death, at the time of that body ceasing, if all ties and attachments to what's not real, to what's not really you, to the character, are not released completely, if all misperceptions picked up in the life are not removed, are not released completely, then they will be carried on into the next life, which dictates, that's what they call karma, because you are attached to certain things, you have seen certain things not clearly. To return to your original form, you must release those false beliefs, those fears, those misperceptions, and those attachments. If you don't, then in the next life you now have some of the past personality, and then this repeats and repeats and repeats, so that after many, many lives you end up with a very complicated, confused personality, psyche, ego, structure. So part of our personality, part of our ego, has nothing to do with this personality we formed in this life, really. Although it may affect the formation of this personality. Part of the ego, what we could call ego, is literally just involved with the formation of this structure, of this body, of holding it together. It's only a physical solid thing here, but in truth, this body and all the information, this physical brain, all of this is a pattern within infinite consciousness. This pattern is being held together by that initial ego structure. Okay, so that part of the ego structure is necessary to function here. Without it, we would dissolve. We would just dissolve into nothing. So that part can't be removed while you're in the body or identifying with the body, attached to the body. as a child, the personality structure starts forming very young, and it forms right there. It attaches at that base level of the ego. Now, everything you see out here in this world, you're only seeing a play of light. It's all being filtered through your own mind within consciousness. So what we call the mind is literally dictating everything you see, everything you hear, all the senses, all the information being relayed to you is being filtered through that. So it's not just bad habits you've picked up. It's the whole personality. So even in the beginning of the spiritual practice, generally what happens is we address our more troublesome impulses, the things that about us that clearly no one wants, we don't want, But then once you wake up to your true nature in some way, you've had some kind of awakening, still you'll notice that even though you know the truth, you're often still getting pulled into illusion. You're still losing control. You're getting pulled into anger. You're getting attached to situations, and then you may clear that, and then another pattern will arise. So that's completely natural. That is your own karma, these own patterns being presented to you so that you can release them. But once you get past a lot of the surface levels of the mind, once you've removed that, once you can find stillness, once you can find silence, you'll still notice that the mind may come from apparently nowhere. Like you feel like you're not attached to something, and still these thoughts or impulses may arise. Now, you can be free even if that happens. You can consider yourself free even if that happens, as long as you don't get attached to them. If you see them come and you pay them no mind, just like a cloud in the sky, you pay it no mind, because the sky is unaffected by the clouds. The silence is unaffected by the noise. The silence within you is always there, underneath the noise, around the noise. It is fundamental to noise. The silence is prior to the noise. So what I'm trying to drive home here is that to see the world through your true eyes, you have to completely release everything. You just have to sit in silence long enough. Until you yourself, as consciousness, you yourself can see the truth. Like I could tell you it, anyone can tell you it 100 times, and you may understand it. So many of you that I talk to, so many of you on Facebook or that watch my videos, you do understand what I'm saying, and you probably, many of you have seen it enough to know on some level that it's true, and of course we all know it's true on some level. But to experience it, I'm trying to get you to see that you can experience it all the time, because it is your true self. It is your true nature. But you have to stop accepting the alternative. You have to stop accepting that the mind has power over you. Even if it comes, see it, laugh at it, dismiss it. Don't give it power over you. The more you do that, the freer you'll be. The more you listen to silence instead of the voice in the head, the freer you'll be, and the quieter it will become. There's truly nothing it's a little bit confusing, because sometimes you'll hear people say, you know, you have to do something in a way. Like, it sounds like you you need to do something in order to experience this, and what you actually need to do is nothing. You need to stop. You need to cease trying, because the trier, what is trying, is the mind itself. My own mind hated itself, wanted to be free of itself, and yet still kept resurfacing. Because the mind isn't real. It has no will of its own. You're the only one with will. And the will is God. Because there is no individual you. There's no actual separation out here. If I look at all these trees and I can see them as separate things, are they not truly connected? No matter what I look at, even if I look at, 50 rocks sitting next to each other, my eyes tell me that these are individual things. There are lines separating from the space between them. But when you look at a TV and you see all these separate images, is it not really one screen? It's just a play of light. All you're seeing is a play of light. There is no actual separation. If you look at your hands under a microscope, the closer you get, the greater your magnification, you'll notice that the line that separates my finger from the air around it becomes fuzzier, until it becomes completely indistinct. Because no matter how you look at it, even if you're sitting next to another human, you are exchanging bacteria, you are exchanging viruses, which exchange DNA between you. You're actually changing your DNA, exchanging it back and forth. You're affecting the whole biosphere of your own body, the whole system. Energetically, your electromagnetic fields are intermingled, and there's lots of other energies that are intermingled. There's no separation. The separation only exists in the mind, and that's only because you've been taught since you were a child that you were an individual, that you were a separate person that had to make something of themselves, instead of realizing that you were exactly what you were supposed to be the moment you were born. So the mind has to completely give up the fight, give up the struggle. Don't try to be a better person. Like, I see so many spiritual sayings and on Facebook saying, what they're doing is looking at a particular attitude or a particular personality trait, and they're saying, don't do this, do this. Don't be judgmental, be this. And there's nothing wrong with any of them. And for someone who's not going to achieve liberation, they may be incredibly helpful, because that may be the best that they can do is address an area in their life, in this life anyways. But for those of you who actually want liberation, don't try to change anything piece by piece about yourself, because everything about you that's free, that's confident, that's fearless, that's love, is the real you. Everything about you that's conflict, that's fear, that's weakness, that's doubt, that's jealousy, is not you at all. It has nothing to do with you. Literally. Whose traits are they? Are they your parents? Your teachers? Your friends? Societies? Your parents learned them from someone else, from their parents. So you really can't lay anger, jealousy, any of this on anyone's doorstep. It's everyone's and no one's, because it doesn't exist at all. It's mass hysteria. Anyways, namaste. I love you all.